Okay, we're
All
live.
right. Good morning, everyone. It's May 13th, 9 a.m. Is it? 9 a.m. exactly. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Ulster County IDA. The mission of the Ulster County IDA is to advance the job opportunities, general prosperity, and long-term economic vitality of the Ulster County residents by targeting tax incentives, bonding, and other assistance to foster creation and attraction of new business and the retention and expansion of existing businesses. May I please have everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll do a quick roll call. Constable Bahal present. Rachel Silverman.
Present.
Thank you. Stephen Kelly.
Present.
Thank you both. All right. May I please have you both quickly look at the minutes from the February 19th meeting and
Motion to approve.
Second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion approved. Any public comments? Nobody in the room, nobody on the screen. Executive session, I don't think we need any unless, no?
Nope.
All right. So one thing I'd like to do is if we could switch the order of the old business to new business objectives. We have discussed old business previously, and the old business is literally to get a sign off from you both and move forward, and we'll discuss that after. On point 8, new business, no Roman numerals, but the first one comes up frequently with different, perhaps the same applicants or recipients for project monitoring late fees. And Hillary can provide more details for it, but we are trying to figure out whether, I think we know what we want to do. We just want your authorizations, if you may, and vote to move forward. But there are two, as Hillary will point out, that have been regularly late.
So this year, they were. So every year, projects are required to submit all their project monitoring fees by January 31st. This year we had two projects that submitted after the January 31st date, and that was JBT and KARG2, which is also the Marys Avenue campus building, which is like a medical arts building. These two were late last year as well. JBT was not that late. They were only late by a few days, but much better communication this year than last year, but still not timely. KARG2, we got it like the day before we submitted to Paris. I think so we'd like to move forward with issuing late fees on those two projects.
May I please, if you don't have any questions, may I please request a motion? I'm in support of.
Do we have a plan for late fees as to how much they are?
Oh yeah, it's outlined in our policy. I didn't put it in here. It's I think off the top of my head like $500 for JBT being like that first tier, and then I think it's like $750 for Marys Avenue being that kind of late tier. We have different tiers.
Late is really bad because we're trying to get our cars.
Correct.
Yeah, and we work really well with Westchester Medical. It's their renters, and this is an ongoing issue with Premier Medical. But I think Premier Medical just got bought out by Nuvance, or maybe it was the other way. I don't remember. So we're hoping next year it'll be better. But we'll see.
Is that the one that wasn't so late, or that's the super late?
That's the super late.
The one that's not so late.
Yeah.
Is it the communications getting better?
It was much better. So last year they had a guy whose name is escaping me, but he had left, and they're a national company. So the local office was directing me to Florida. Florida was directing me here, and it was really a challenge. We finally identified the person. Costume and I met her when we went on a site visit. So now Excellent. I feel like next year we know the person, and we really can kind of make sure that we're communicating really well with her, and we've identified her. So I don't anticipate it being an issue for next year, but the hospital, that one I am concerned. We really didn't get
we
far.
should be mindful that if we make a decision either way, we have to be consistent with all the applicants.
Yeah.
That's it.
Have
Sorry, you were
you,
gonna say something.
have you sent a letter through governance to the hospital?
Like saying,
Other than that, what was the notifications to the hospital?
oh, I
Countless.
Not
Countless.
from governance, but
And then-
she has, yeah.
oh yeah, and then I started calling other people.
So, you know,
So-
the language
and you
in
met
that
them in
too
person,
is, without reporting, we used to send the letters through governance over to them and then solidify it by the lawyer too, you know,
Yeah.
run it
Yeah.
by two. But in it, it would read clearly, you know, we need this in a timely fashion to file our paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
You are subject to the clawback revision.
Yeah,
And that usually
have
gets
that.
everybody's attention.
That's still in the letter.
They
we
have
send
been-
that.
Send that letter?
Yeah, and I email it saying, I'm gonna bring this to the board. Our council has advised. We use a lot of that language, and again, Westchester Medical has
Okay.
been extremely responsive to
Sorry
all
about
of that. It's the renter is really been the challenge.
Still, that's their problem, that isn't our problem.
Yeah,
We still
Yes.
have to file Paris on time.
exactly.
We need that information.
Yeah.
I make the motion that does that come from governance that we find them?
We recommend,
I make the motion that we find them as is appropriate in our contract with
Yeah.
them.
may I get a second, please?
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Okay.
Motion approved for the annual project monitoring late fees.
I think we ought to look at that again. In
Yes,
the future, we ought to raise the, if they're really late after, that should be much higher. Have a little tap on the wrist and then
Mhm.
a bludgeon after that, and then
Yeah.
after that, we claw back.
We always tried not to be so punitive, that's what it was, you know, but, you know, when you're a repeat offender all the time.
Did we
I
talk,
agree.
I might be confusing with something else. Did we talk about adding to the fee or incorporating the cost of chasing it down?
We
Like an
did.
allocation of your time?
We had, I think, talked about that on the broader sense of our administrative fees. Yeah,
so
that we
did
can
not speak
add
about
on.
late fees, but
Excuse
Hillary
me.
and I had a separate discussion, one-on-one, where we were reviewing all sorts of fees, including making it pretty hefty if somebody's a repeat offender, or is hindering with our submission of audits or whatever it might be.
It's
So-
not a heavy lift. You
Yeah.
just gotta go
Yeah.
do a little bit of work. And
It's an
paperwork.
administrative task, it's not.
Yeah, it's usually once someone does it. I mean, some businesses can turn it around in a matter of like 30 minutes. It's
So
not.
if
We're
a
not
board
asking.
member is suggesting, or a governance committee
Yeah.
member is suggesting that we review that, we're happy to take under advisement and
Sure.
actually come
We can
back.
bring it.
Yeah, next
Okay.
time,
Yep.
it's not on the agenda, but I think that should be, we should look at
So
that.
we can
and have-
review both
idea.
administrative fees and late fees.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think for late fees particularly, repeat offense should have, we should have an earlier one and then a late one, and then, late being later before Paris, but we should have an additional one that goes up every time it's late. So
Okay.
if we have, consistent lateness, it spirals up so that there's an incentive to finally
Yes.
Yeah.
figure it out and get it done.
No, I agree. That would be wonderful.
And reminding them of the clawback.
And that's in all the letters. We have that.
All right. Everybody good on late fees?
Okay.
All right. The second one is also fairly quick. Currently, we have a background check policy for the applicants. When I say we, Ulster County IDA, for all the applicants, and Hillary did the work. I think Natalie must have helped as well to find if other agencies have similar background policy or not, check policy or not. They seem not to have it. There's certain things that rise to the top when you think about having a background check policy. So first of all, we do check background by way of due diligence.
Right.
We as an agency, I believe, should not be responsible for background checks and own the liability and take the liability of something potentially being missed. Hillary might have a few more points on that. We're happy to discuss this, but the idea is not only to not have something that may not be necessary from our side, but also not to have it in the application such that it's an ill advertisement, if you may, to the applicant. I'll take a pause.
Is
And
what's in the documents our current policy?
This is our current policy, and so when we, start to get applications, we went, so kind of backtracking a couple years, we were using a company out of New Windsor or Dutchess County, I can't remember off the top of my head, and that we felt that they were a bit unprofessional with us, with Natalie, and we ran that by the chair and decided that, we were no longer going to use them. And so we had to go find a new company, and we asked council, what am I doing with this? This is kind of not really clear. And he was like, what do you mean? No other IDA has this. It's not a requirement of the general municipal law. And so
I don't think we should do this. I think
it's in our application, exactly.
I think we should. I make a motion that we remove this from our.
Yeah.
I would like a second.
I have one question.
Oh, yes,
Sure,
absolutely.
go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
When you said and I agree, if we are not assuming responsibility for this, we're also then not assuming liability for this.
Yeah.
Are we definitely not then going to be liable for anything we would have known in the background check? I don't know if I said that question
You
correctly.
did, I
It's
think,
early
because
for the coffee.
what was Chris's?
So the meat of this
Uh-huh.
is in the application.
Mhm.
They have to,
Financial statements, all
Correct.
that's in the
Everything.
yeah, well, financial
I'm not
statements.
so worried about that kind of stuff, actually. I mean,
You're thinking
I-
criminal.
I'm thinking more like
The
that.
criminal
I don't think we
stuff
should
is
be
in
asking
there.
for 3 years of tax returns from an investor.
Well, that's what
in a
I was
business.
like,
That's-
so when I get it, Chris, what do I do with it? What am I looking for on the
I'm more like
financial?
an IDA project
Right.
wants to do something on property near a school, and a background check would have revealed something.
So they have to indicate that
Paranoia.
on the application, and then they have to notarize it.
Okay,
So
I
I
think that's
think
enough.
Chris feels that covers our responsibility as an IDA to ensure that, we're moving forward with appropriate
Yeah.
applicants.
I think self-disclosure and having it notarized is
Yeah.
good for me.
And for the record, Chris happens to be is our counsel.
Yes, Chris Canada, sorry.
Chris Cannon.
Okay.
I did the same thing. so.
I derailed. I'll
No?
second your motion now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
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 all right, so
Thank you.
Chris is not here, but I'm assuming, and maybe Mike, you have so much, does that now need to move to the board, or can it
Yeah, I
die
think we should make a recommendation
to the board? Okay, I just wanna make
remove
sure we
the
get that motion right.
current background check policy from the application
Okay, to the board,
to the board.
got it.
You want to make the motion to present to the board?
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we write the motion
Yes, please.
correctly.
Yep.
Okay,
So
And then-
moved.
all right, and then,
May I get a second on the
Second.
motion?
all right,
All in
perfect,
favor?
thank
Aye.
you.
Aye. Thank you. All right.
So,
Third one is also fairly quick. I'll
Yeah.
let Hillary go into the details a little
Sure.
bit, but simply put, we will need a refresher member training, I don't know, for 30 minutes or 45 minutes pursuant.
30 is probably fine.
All right.
Yeah.
And Hillary can go into the details of
Yeah.
why we need that.
Okay, so, every year we do the confidential board evaluation. During that discussion, I don't know if any of you recall, there was a member who was struggling to complete all of the boxes. And so our numbers did not all add up to 7.
Right.
You discussed that as a group, and not knowing what that blank may be, thought that making sure that all members are aligned with the mission, understand their responsibilities as a refresher, would be a good way to kind of,
And that should not be optional. I
No.
mean,
yeah.
We should have to respond.
So the ABO reviewed that and asked the same question you all did, why was this not completed? And I responded that we are going to do a refresher training. The board is aware that not all the boxes, but felt that a refresher training would fulfill any boxes that were checked, as well as potential answers on those boxes not checked. And they were fine with that answer. So we actually
Okay.
really need to do the training.
So we all have to do the training because somebody didn't check some boxes?
Correct.
Is that what we're hearing?
Well, but yes, but I think you had
Well, I think we
decided
should come up with a policy that everyone's gonna.
check the boxes in the
Check the box of
future.
what they feel.
And
And if
that
they don't, then they shouldn't be on the board.
I agree.
I,
and
I'm
was
done
going
with that.
propose-
That's,
No,
I don't want to spend 30 minutes of my time
That's
because
right.
somebody didn't check the boxes. No,
Well-
not at all.
And
Steve, I completely agree, and Hillary and I had this discussion that should we have a policy or that makes it more cumbersome? I do not have an answer to that. You're suggesting we should. I think we should just discuss
I
that.
mean, it doesn't even have to be specific to this form.
Right,
A
anything.
couple times a
Everything,
year.
everything
All
we
the
have to do.
responsibilities, yeah.
yeah,
So,
well, I think we'll cover that in the training, but I don't think it's a bad idea to just spend 20 minutes, a half hour annually. There could be members who are feeling a little lost, feeling like they're not sure they understand, and maybe getting everyone on the same page every year for 20 minutes may not be the worst idea.
didn't we talk about this training
We
last
did.
year?
Yeah.
And it was not in
It's the same
response to
training.
this. It
No.
was in response to just sort of addressing anyone's, it could be anything, a blanket, let's get on the same page,
Yes.
make sure if anyone has any questions in a training setting as opposed to an on the record setting
Mhm.
about what the mission is, what the responsibilities are,
Yeah.
how we collaborate and like appropriate times to have discussions, why Rachel asks so many questions
That
all the
isn't why we're doing
time.
this. We're doing this because
Well-
somebody didn't check the boxes.
Right.
Yeah, but now we
it's both.
have to do it.
I
But
think
we
it's
have
both.
I
to.
think if somebody didn't check the boxes, that is causing us to have this training.
Did the
That's a
person
problem.
that didn't check the boxes, did they check in with you to say, hey, listen, I didn't understand the questions?
They did. They said they were having some technical difficulty with the form,
But
and
remind me, were they also handed a printout of the form?
they were.
Okay.
And I did try to
Right.
send it in a different format
Technical difficulty.
on
With
the
pen and paper.
Okay.
with not the pen and paper, but with the online
you
one.
know-
But I sent it in another format as I tried to turn it into like a fillable PDF. So, because it's in a Word format.
I think we should, in the meeting, clarify, but to your point, we did have two discussions. One discussion previously that we had was regarding the ensuring of the fact that all board members are aligned to the mission. That was the first one. The second time when we discussed, as Steve recalls, was related specifically to this aspect of board evaluations, that the numbers were not tying, and how will it look when the audit happens?
Yeah, but
So-
audit where it looks like
Sure.
somebody didn't respond.
Yes.
They didn't respond.
Chair, if I could,
Yes,
I would
please,
like
of course.
to, I would recommend to the governance committee that you review the bylaws and what the obligations of any board member are to this board. Everybody's time is valuable,
Yes.
and if people don't understand, they should be asking a question if they're gonna sit on this board, and they should talk to the ED, talk to chair governance, talk to chair finance, so on and so forth, and get clarification on what they have to do. I do agree with you. We also handed that out in printable form.
Mhm.
If you're having a technical problem, you probably should have filled it out by hand, walked in, handed it to somebody.
I think that's all of us. That's
That's
all
what I
we
did,
did.
because-
Printed out and-
I know.
Right now, you want to know something? You've got ABO coming back saying, hey,
Yeah.
this is not correct.
Exactly. That doesn't.
You
look
don't
good.
want that.
No.
We
No,
never
we don't.
had that before. And now all of a sudden we have that, so,
So, Chair, I completely agree. In fact, Hillary and I have discussed this. We didn't want to spend anybody's time that is not required. And we had discussed what's going to happen if ABO comes back to us regarding
They're
this,
gonna,
and
this
now
is
we're
like a
there.
red flag. It's
Yes,
like,
it
there's
is.
some kind of a problem there.
Yes,
We ought
it's-
to investigate it.
It's not very good risk
We
mitigation.
don't
I'm
want
sorry
that.
to say that.
I
Alright.
don't think that having board member training, I have no problem with education.
Mhm.
But if this is the reason why we're doing it, and I don't want to do it. Because I filled out the form and I don't want to have to sit through the training that I obviously got it. I was able to fill out the form and complete that. And I think whoever it was who wasn't may need some remediation, and that's how I would propose that.
So you prefer to
ahead.
separate the two?
Yeah, I
Well,
think,
Let me ask a question of
Did-
Hillary.
Yeah.
In your conversations with ABO, were they satisfied with the answer that a training will occur, or was the specificity there for all board members too?
well,
So-
that was the answer.
I-
So now
I-
you have to follow.
But
That's why
okay,
I'm
but
asking,
if we
yeah.
back up for a second, I just want to say that the idea of having an annual training came out of governance, not in response to missing a form. It was the idea of there were some, for the most part, everyone was 100% agree, but there were some people where, you know, we were kind of a few
It was
spots
last year in a different,
all over the
Yeah,
place.
different objective.
Yes.
And so my response to ABO was, you know, that we're having the training. So if there are some boxes that are kind of, we don't know what they are, they could be completely disagree, that a 30-minute refresher would address that.
So here's the thing. The forms are unidentifiable, anonymous. So we cannot necessarily identify
Yeah.
who that individual was.
No, you can't.
So by default, it happens to be, in my opinion, that everybody has to spend some time, unfortunately or fortunately, and do this training.
So I can,
Or you, yes, please.
I mean, I can tell you what I said. They said, we've received your mission and performance goals and summary results of the confidential board evaluations. Upon review of the attached, we note that most criteria has 7 responses recorded, but several criteria report 5 or 6 responses. If this is an error, please send updated summaries or an explanation. So I said, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Yes, we're aware. One member reported some technical issues with the forms. These forms were completed to the best of our ability at the time, reviewed by our governance committee at the 219 meeting. The committee was made aware of the missing responses, which were then discussed in open session at the meeting. Ultimately, the board agreed and moved forward that an annual refresher training would be a sufficient response to the information received and any potential information not received. Please advise on any appropriate steps we need to take. Thank you. There is no further action needed at this time. So that's.
So we're gonna have 30 minutes where we're gonna go over the form so we can all.
No,
exactly
we're
what
just
we know.
gonna go through a refresher training.
On the requirements of the responsibilities of the board member.
it sounds like they're letting us use the fact that we were going to do training
Right.
anyway to potentially address some of the substance
Yes.
in some of the questions,
Okay.
to also cover the fact that this happened. That said, we should not be having them have this conversation with us, and I think it's important that the whole board be made very aware that this red flag has gone up and they're looking, and while we might have the cover of already having planned to do a training,
Yeah.
that's not a solution.
It's not, and so the
It's not a solution. We all have to be
Yeah.
big kids here. We
Yes.
gotta
Agreed.
be able to fill out the forms. If you wanna be on the board, you've got to go through do what you have to do.
And
So-
you have to be familiar with the bylaws and requirements, as Chair said as well.
That's right.
So it's nothing new.
So moving, I think if we're all aligned, I was able to get this wonderful PowerPoint on being a great board member from the Ulster leadership. It's quite long. I will cut it way down. But I think it really goes through in a very positive way about board responsibilities, accountability, you know,
I think
and
we can look at it.
and so what I'd like to do is work with Costube and come up with like a 30-minute, 20-minute training, paring this down. That way we can, and I think what we're looking from you guys is, do we want to do this in May or June?
I will not be here next week is May, right?
Yeah. So
I
you're
won't be here next week.
Okay.
What day in June are you gonna do it? At the meeting?
Well, I was thinking like,
after the meeting.
yeah, like
before-
20 minutes
yeah.
before or after.
We could even make it shorter. Does it have to have 30-minute time frame?
What is
No.
the June meeting? What's the June meeting?
I'm looking right now. I think it's the 18th. I don't have it on everyone's calendar yet. Sorry. It's the 18th.
Missing out on
18th.
tournament, aren't you?
Yep, 18th.
No, I'm heading to Florida that.
Oh.
All right.
At night,
Yeah,
so you're
Oh.
good.
yeah, I got a union meeting.
Okay.
So,
Going right after.
So do we
August-
want to
so
do?
July, August, September.
We could do July. If we want to push it
How
further.
about we discuss
Figure
that
out
and we come back to the
Yeah. Okay.
everybody.
So,
and let
yeah,
them know
we're
when it
just-
is.
Really looking to, you know, if there was anything specific we wanted, you as a committee wanted, kind of
Maybe we
hearing a theme, but is there
Yeah,
anything specific you want to see in
could-
this
maybe
training?
we could have it as a PowerPoint handout that we give to people.
Okay. You could do- And have them sign off on it.
I
like
am fine
that.
with that.
All right.
You've received it and you've
I like
you've
that.
reviewed it.
QR
That way we
code.
can, we don't have to
Well-
take up an
You
extra
wanna take a
meeting.
biometric?
It's already a problem.
Okay, so we'll do a
I agree
QR
with
code,
Seems
PowerPoint.
No, no QR code. No, that was. No,
Well,
that's
if you
a big-
lose it, we're down on paper. You just
Fair point. No,
Yeah.
technical difficulties.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
less technical, less
Yeah.
technical.
All right, and then we'll have people sign off on it.
Yes.
All right, I like that.
As a receipt.
Let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
And if we have that, can we just pass it out and like
Yeah.
we'll just pass
that's
it
what-
out?
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So we
Let
don't
us
even
lie.
have to.
Yep.
Is the training public? Like,
We did not do our last training
No.
public
Okay.
since we're not discussing IDA business. But if we're doing it as a PowerPoint handout that people sign off on, and then
make it public. I mean, that's
Yeah, make
Yeah.
it public. That's
it's
fine.
not,
Yeah.
it's irrelevant.
No.
Okay.
definitely.
There's no need for executive
I like
session
that.
for this.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
No.
All right.
I don't have anything on these points. I'll quickly take the old business. You want to?
Sure. So we will run through this very quickly. We're going to go through the findings of the UCIDA Sustainable Job Task Force.
We can keep it very short.
I'm
have
going
gone
to
through
keep
this.
it short. We have a PowerPoint, so I'm not going to read it to you. But
Do we have
Trevor,
any updates on how we're doing on achieving that 70%
We do not.
climate renewable
I mean,
by 2030? Which
probably.
Is, and what the probability of us meeting that? I mean, I'd like
That-
to know. I'd
Assuming
like to
it'll
see
go down.
progress.
Yeah, so Trevor and I met multiple times. I have more data than ever needs to be on this, and so I'm happy to provide any answers to questions you have. But the first slide was really just looking at how, when we did this work, were we kind of defining economic development for sustainable jobs and energy. We looked at, advancing clean energy, growing green jobs, and things like smart infrastructure, kind of, renewables and things. We looked at, who we are as a county, Ulster County, where do we kind of fit in, our proximity to major markets hubs, our access to major highways, some of our location really stands out. Ulster County, as you know, the county executive has a strong commitment to renewable energy and sustainability. It's something she's very passionate about and works hard towards. So we've done a lot locally. We have renewable energy goals. We've created a climate smart action plan, and the county has also implemented a lot of sustainable practices. So we found that there's a lot going on locally.
What was their emissions in January 1st of 2023 compared to now?
I will look that up for you. I do not know off the top of my head.
How much? 40% in
Yeah.
in 7 years, which is 2 years have already gone by. So just wondering how we're doing.
I will find out. How are we doing?
So this is about the county.
That was about the county. Yep. We have some wonderful development ready sites. So when we look at these clean jobs, green jobs, is Ulster County in a position to be competitive and bring those here? In some ways, yes. In some ways, not as much as other counties. But we do have some development ready sites, such as our iPark. City of Kingston has done a wonderful job with their business park that's kind of off of Broadway off of Delaware Avenue. And then there are several sites that are zoned industrial. I've gotten some more information since I made this PowerPoint. There's actually many more sites than these in Saugerties and Esopus. There's some out in Lloyd and other places around the county. Ellenville has some good sites. So this is another area, again, where we're not marketing these sites currently, but they have the potential to.
Whose job is it to market? That is not.
We really don't have anyone identified right now in the county.
Isn't that what the economic development, county economic development, that's sort of their job?
Currently they don't have a marketing plan in place, so these sites are not being marketed. Unless, the owner of the site chooses to market them, and sometimes they do, like iPark is doing some work trying to market their sites, but unless the site owner is actively marketing it, there is no marketing going on in Ulster.
Okay.
But there are some potential IDA solutions should we want to get involved in that. This is really just giving you that 100,000 foot overview. And then kind of looking at so if we have some of these assets, where does our workforce and education fit into this? kind of goes through what we have locally here in Ulster County, but just so you know, Dutchess County has like 3 or 4 universities as well. So we're in a really good space. They call it brain drain when you have all of these really smart institutions, but then once those kids graduate, they all leave the area. That somewhat is a good little analogy of what's happening here in Ulster County. We don't have.
They asked all those kids why they're leaving?
Well, I think it's jobs. The jobs really aren't here. So what are some of our needs, in terms of workforce, lack of housing? Lack of housing. We have, I put it in here. We have an aging population as well. Young people don't tend to stay in the area. Limited opportunities for career growth and disconnected stakeholders. I think all of you around the table have probably seen this in your day-to-day.
It's true.
So
but
yeah.
I'd say we have these development-ready sites that we have a commitment where we say we want to have we want to grow green jobs and smart infrastructure, advancing clean energy. So we know that that's manufacturing some kind of clean energy products. And we have industrial sites where these factories could be built. And if those factories were built, then it would be likely that there would be opportunities for our youth to stay here.
Yes, 100%. You hit the nail on the head.
So whose job is it to do the marketing? Because that's kind of the part that's missing.
You are correct. We agree.
We're the bank. I mean, we don't do the marketing unless that becomes our mission. And if it does, then I think that's a change in our mission, and which would be fine. But
well, it wouldn't necessarily change in our mission. It would change in the strategy and how we implement the mission. But I can give an example. In Orange County, one of the things that their IDA does, so there's a program called Fast New York. And Mike's probably familiar with Fast New York. Okay. And what Fast New York does is there's different levels, but you can kind of submit a site and they will help, not necessarily market it, but the assets attached to the site. What's the best use? What's it zoned for?
Like posting, so if somebody's thinking of building a factory.
Yeah, that's kind of like
their business.
Yes.
You look on Fast New York's website, and they can see the ones in Saugerties, the ones in Kingston, and the ones in Lord.
Yeah, that's that level 1. But if you get your site in the Fast New York system, it can open it up to grants for infrastructure. So some of those soft costs. It's like a matching grant. I don't know all the details right off the top of my head. There's different levels of it, but typically Fast New York gets done through an IDA. So there are a bunch of sites down in Orange County that the partnership is actively trying to market, and they make them Fast New York sites through the IDA. You have to get the developer, the owner of the site on board, because there is like a cost matching. So you need a developer that's willing and wants to actively manage the site and invest in the infrastructure, but there's a lot of matching, and that is one that was renewed in the budget. They really want to get these sites, kind of like work on site readiness, and so IDAs take a big.
So IDAs are then in the promotional role.
Yeah,
trying to identify the sites, work with the site owners to participate in the Fast New York, and be able to see that their property would be worth more if the infrastructure was updated, half of which paid for by Fast New York and half by them.
I don't know if it's half and half, but yeah, there's different levels of the Fast
kind of sharing.
Yeah, shared soft costs on the infrastructure.
But they get to keep the enhanced value of the property, or they have to commit to that, and then if they get a customer, then they have to do it? Or do they have to do it first?
I'd have to look at the program, but that's just one marketing tool. And the nice thing about that is, even though we don't really have a active marketing campaign for our sites, there are people in the state that work with site selectors around the country. They work for ESD. And I was talking to one of the guys and I was like, what do you need? Like, what's the most valuable thing? And he says, knowing your sites, knowing, you know, what the acreage is. Can it support how much solar? What's it zoned for? What's the problems? Is it a potential brownfield? Does it have phase one done? Like all of those things are so valuable to them because he has a really close relationship with site selectors, and there are several of these people in ESD, and that's what they're doing.
We should be mindful about this also because Henry and I have discussed something similar to what you're talking about. What are the initiatives we can do?
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
but we might be a little resource restrained
We are research
to
restrained. We're not
actually
prepared to do this.
initiate something like that. So who's responsible? I haven't heard much, to be very honest, from UCIDA yet in terms of what initiatives are happening at their end. I would love to understand. I would also love to understand how we can partner and piggyback on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, you tell me if you have heard anything new from them or.
I have not spoken to Kevin in a while. I'm not
Okay.
really sure what.
I know you reached out, but.
I haven't heard anything on the UCIDA end.
This is the first time hearing of this and like first time learning about it, and it's fascinating.
Oh, it is. I find it super fascinating.
And I agree, maybe not for us to take onto market. However, we do have a pretty well kicked off now marketing PR campaign.
We're already here.
So is there an element of this that could become one of our programs? And it doesn't have to be us taking it on. What we're taking on is putting a spotlight on opportunity that the IDA can help with.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know if that's big or small, and I don't know who the partners are to do it, but
So
this is like
Well,
you
identifying-
teaching us this is exactly what we do.
Identifying the sites that could be, I just think that was something that would be really helpful.
Oh,
Because right
I
now,
agree.
I don't know who's really responsible for doing that kind of work, for trying to promote development that creates jobs in Ulster County. You know, we're basically financing, I mean, maybe we should be something more.
Maybe this is the way we shake the tree.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we should, and we have gone that route in terms of how can we start that. Mr. Ham, you have something.
No, clear my throat.
Okay.
You have something to
You
say.
do have something to say, but I'll start and maybe you can add to
You
it.
want to just kick me?
So Hillary and I talked about perhaps connecting with planning.
Yep.
And tourism already has some kind of asset database that could be mirrored.
Mm-hmm.
We could start potentially doing a very basic exercise with an intern. But having said all that,
Your favorite.
my idea is, can we first identify the objective, align with potentially UCIDA as well, such that there can be some resource sharing, and we could benefit from that. Because there are a lot of ideas about what we can do, and Hillary will tell you that I think I take a lot of time with her saying, oh, let's do this, but our hands are a little tied on that. So my question would be, I think, can we somehow figure out what industries specifically we want to target? And I'm just going to illustratively take an example. Perhaps it's tourism, perhaps it's assembly, or light manufacturing, or related to clean energy, you know?
Related to clean energy.
And then strategize how to actually execute that. Limitations we can overcome. But if we have a slight plan, and we're all, to your point, we're already doing the marketing. We've done it in May last year, we're doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
So we are actually quite at the forefront of doing what we can,
We could
despite being a
collaborate
bank.
with like
Correct.
Ulster Strong and folks like that, the chambers, the various chambers around the county.
Sure, Ham, what's your thought on Ulster Strong?
so we could get it out to the community of businesses that might be interested.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I just want to make sure I'm clear, I've looked at a lot of these wonderful things that IDAs have done, and I have yet to see one that an IDA did it in a bubble. It's usually done with a municipality as a partner, a county government as a partner. So, I think if there is, and but who really initiates? Like, let's say we took our mall and said, hey, we need to do something with the mall. The IDA is coming with the tools, whether it's, hey, let's, get some infrastructure grants and we'll run those through the IDA, or, hey, can we sit down with the IDA and look at what kind of pilot so we can know what the pilot is and use that to kind of, market the site. That's where I'm seeing IDAs come in. I'm not necessarily seeing them as the ones initiating it. It's usually someone else, a municipality, is identifying the site.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I could be totally wrong, but my vision of the IDA would be more of financing incentives to help push something over the finish line, not to actually be doing all of the front end work of identifying prospects to come here from someplace else, and not to be identifying businesses here that want to grow and are looking, we would be helping them, but it wouldn't be up to us to be saying, well, if you're going to make this kind of product, then we would support it. I think we should look at any business that looks here, that wants to work here, and then we evaluate it on its own merit. The project, that is, not the business.
Yeah.
So I think if we sit back and wait, Hillary is the executive director, at least she can spend a good amount of her time. If we're waiting for people to come to us because we don't know who's conducting the orchestra here, at least we can get her a Swiffer and she could clean the cobwebs over there, because she'll be pretty bored if we're sitting on our hands waiting. I would safely say that you just proceed.
Yeah,
and guess what? Yeah. Somebody will come knocking on the door and go, excuse us, but that's our job. And then we go, you're the guy. That's fantastic. We've been waiting for you.
Apologize later.
I say we proceed.
Let's proceed. I agree.
Proceed.
Yeah.
Keep moving.
We're clearly not stepping in anyone's toes.
No, obviously not.
There are no toes here.
Clearly not.
Obviously not. And listen, it's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
So Hillary and I have talked about this quite a bit.
We
don't
have.
talk again, but
and I
it's frustrating.
There are errors of omission and errors of commission. We are
Correct.
certainly erring on the side of omission at the moment. So maybe it's time to commit some errors and see if there really are errors or not.
And I think, just to be clear,
That's how we grow. That's how we grow.
We learn otherwise.
and it's a building. So we're trying right now to lay the foundation. We need to have all of the partners and stakeholders first really understand what the IDA is, what we can do.
We're getting there.
Build those relationships, and then from there, let's say we have a supervisor in a town that has a parcel that's like, hey, I've been dying for XYZ on this. We can partner together with them, bring the developer in, bring all the other stakeholders,
and there's towns that may not be that interested, and we don't have to worry about it. Right?
Exactly.
They don't want any businesses in their community. Right. They want to be just a bedroom community. There's nothing wrong with that. No. And then, but it's pretty easy to tell, because we have, who's more business friendly. We should be just going and talking to those town supervisors and seeing how we could help them.
Yeah.
Because they're probably closest to the ground. I live in the town of Lloyd, which is very progressive. And very interested in being able to have businesses and opportunities for our children to stay here. And there are other communities that are not that way.
And so we had our municipality training, really just bringing all the municipalities together and going through the IDA in our process. We've got the next event coming up in June, and it's a marathon, not a sprint, and a lot of that work, it has to do with education being accessible and available. I just went to a Brownfield conference, and also being educated ourselves, because it's going to take a lot of partnerships to get these things done, and so being as educated as we can about the different tools and making sure we're connecting people appropriately. We're also been writing some blogs, and they're putting them on our website. We just did one on Pilots 101, so if you have a chance, you can read that, because Mike and I ran into an issue recently where someone, one of our affected taxing jurisdictions came to us with a list of pilots, not upset, but just saying like, hey, we're carrying this burden. And these were not us. There are many ways that projects can get a real property tax abatement, and the IDA is just one of like 7 ways. And so we wanted to clarify that.
The problem with what happened was is they came with a laundry list of pilots.
Yeah.
And we only owned 7 of them.
And they were not ones that
and
were.
then the other 20 were not ours.
Yeah.
But we were taking the blunt of it because the word pilot is directly associated with the IDA.
Yeah.
Which people miss out on the fact that municipalities can offer up their own pilots.
They can.
Or,
Yeah.
So that's what happened, and we corrected that. And at first we got told, no, they're yours. And we went, no, they're not. So, it went back. So anyhow, that being said, I'm going to touch back on the education part. And this is why we're running these events every 6 months, whatever the case may be, to get people in there and get them educated. But falling back on proceeding, right now, I got to be honest with you, we haven't waited for anything. That's why good things are coming to the IDA. That's like projects like the Marlboro Resort project have come here. We didn't wait for anything on that. Hillary was on it. You know what I mean? So we're out there digging and doing what's best,
It might be worth it to look at those industrial sites and have a 1-pager or a 2-pager with a map and those bullets that you talked
Yeah.
about. If we could get some of those, I'm not sure where we would get that information, but probably the planning department would have that. And then that way you have something in your toolkit where somebody comes and says they're interested in something, you say, there's a place just like that available in Lloyd.
So
where I live and lower my taxes.
Yeah.
But with the landscape that's approaching here, we're going to be we're a valuable tool.
Mm-hmm.
And if people miss out on that, I'll say it once, I say it 100 times. All right, maybe you're not coming for a pilot, but come on, you're doing a project and you're going to miss the sales abatement. I mean, that's
another thing that
that's
think
horrible. That's just not thinking.
we would like to address. Not at this meeting, as I know everyone's time is valuable, but we have. So the IDAs are really the only entity. Again, you have different ways you can go get a pilot. There's only really one way you can get the sales abatement on construction, and that's through the IDA.
And that's New York State.
And our fee structure doesn't incentivize projects that aren't like pilot projects from coming for the construction abatement on the sales and use tax. And so a lot of our neighboring, I haven't done every IDA in the state, but I have a spreadsheet on what other IDAs that are either near us or similar in size to us. Many of them have like a specific fee structure for projects coming for just sales and use tax abatement.
We should do that.
Yeah, that's something we'd really like to see.
Every project.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Every project we do.
Yes,
that.
it's
We share in it a little bit to help support us.
Yeah.
And that would make sense.
Yeah.
So
Because it's a big savings. It
You
can
have
really help get shovels in the ground.
yeah, it certainly would
Big
help.
boost.
And then they go 485A, 485B.
Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
And the markup that's going to come on construction materials alone.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's going to be,
You don't want. You miss that boat, guess what? That's criminal.
Yeah, so we'd like to update the fee structure to reflect an actual cost savings to projects
Right.
who are coming
I like
for
that
not up.
sliding amount we have.
Yep.
Yeah.
We take 2% of the savings or something.
So yeah, I think we've seen 5% of savings or of the actual savings, and then there are some that just have like a flat fee based on the total capital of the project. So it'll be like
Or it can be a scaleless.
Yeah.
Streamline it the best you can to help.
Yeah.
there's a bunch of tried and true methods that other IDAs have done, and I think it's not a matter of us having to reinvent the wheel.
No,
It's
let's
just to
pick one of
No,
those.
let's
adopting
okay,
one
first.
that. Yeah, so I have that. I have it in a spreadsheet, and I
Whatever's
can.
easy to administer.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
exactly. Okay, so that's sorry, I know we got off track briefly. All right, so then just how can IDAs assist? We've talked about a lot of that. The only thing we really didn't cover is that in general municipal law, IDAs can do energy projects even though they don't create jobs. Some of the IDAs that have successfully attracted that to their area have gone and done very specific UTEPs for energy. And the solar and battery storage, and when companies are looking for that, I don't know if it's something you're interested in doing. I'm on the fence about it, to be honest. But that would be a way to incentivize these types of projects to happen here, is for us to go above and beyond what they can get directly through the state.
I think for energy projects, it's also quite dependent on the town, right?
It is.
Somebody wants it
Yeah,
or not
so
there,
it'd be a lot of work for us
Yeah.
we're not as competitive as some of the other counties in really being attractive for these.
I'm
Okay.
just trying to find some low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to hit the hardest ones. Let them deal with
Exactly.
those.
Yeah.
We, the Tug Hill Plateau, like Lewis County, they've done some phenomenal, but they're just set up differently than we are. We don't have that. Okay, and then we've kind of really discussed that. The last thing is just what are we thinking? What are you guys thinking? Send that to me. Send your thoughts. I have more data than ever data could be needed on this, and I'd be happy to further share that information.
Well,
And
I think what we should be looking for, I don't know, continuous improvement. I think as we start rolling here and we start having some projects rolling and we become more visible, we'll be used more. And I think if we become more outbound, more engaged, there will be, just as Mike said, there'll be folks that'll be wondering, why we're taking the lead on things. And the reason we're taking the lead on them is because nobody else did. So,
Yeah.
If you want to be a leader, you got to step up. That's part of the deal.
So, as small as this may sound, but getting the word out that we're invested in these projects and in the community, we did, and we do, we still have it. We have it as the construction begins on a project, they're supposed to post that they're a partner with the IDA.
They should have like a 4x8 sign by the
Yep.
road.
A lot of places, we forget, they forget, whatever, but that's the one way to do that. You got your name out there.
Yeah.
People see that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look, and we have to remember that. I can tell you several projects that are going on right now that it's not there.
So we should have a sign saying,
except for New Paltz, and they should have it.
No.
they didn't have it. I saw it too, yeah.
They don't. I'll
they-
ask
Yeah,
Kevin.
we
'Cause-
should
don't
put
have
on
it.
it all of the benefits that we're able to have: pilot, tax
Yes.
abatement,
all right. Well,
sales tax abatement, mortgage recording tax abatement. Those kinds of things we should put right on
Come
that
on
sign.
down.
Yeah, we
I'll-
should simply
And
use the
so-
but for and say,
yeah.
without IDA's assistance would
But
not be
for-
possible.
Yeah. That's so
Yes,
That's
I
it,
like.
you know?
I will ask because we made sure that it was in the contract, and I talked to Kevin about wanting signage at each site.
No, it's in there.
Yeah,
I
it is.
remember
So
it.
I'll
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
ask him
Yeah.
because I don't. It
And we
probably
have a new
just.
Don't
logo.
ask him,
We
let's
want
just-
that
Yeah,
on
we have a
the
new
sign.
logo.
Everything's in
Just
there.
tell
Well, they're monitoring it to make sure the sign is up, and they're the ones that are supposed to create the sign.
Oh,
It's
that
in Kevin, not
Kevin-
Kevin here.
Kevin
Kevin
from
from
Loki
Loki
Bro.
Bro.
Oh,
They're the
Okay,
ones that
okay.
are supposed to be helping create the sign, and it's part of the contract is that they're
Well,
going to
we
do
should-
signage.
We have to stay on it.
Yeah,
Good.
I'll
have to
follow
stay
up
on
with
it.
him.
I would envision
We
more
want
and
to
more
definitely
people
have one in
coming
New
that way.
Paltz. That location is a really
yeah, everybody
visible
passes
location.
by there.
Yeah.
That's gonna be perfect.
No, that'd be beautiful. I'll call him as soon as we get off and
And
find
Start
out.
walking around in our
G jackets.
Yeah.
Well, I
we
talked
get
to
green
Mike
colored ID.
about
for
getting
all
some
of us to
swag
wear.
at some
You know,
point.
the
Swag.
Hillary can swing by the
Yeah.
thrift store. I think.
Oh, God.
I think
Again.
they have 1980 members only jackets. I
Uh,
think.
Yeah,
love
I
it.
could take a screen and some wooden two
That's
by
all there is to
fours
it.
and
Make 'em in the
silk
basement.
screens.
Make 'em in the basement.
Yeah,
That's it.
it'll look nice. Yeah, all right. There we go.
That might be the easier one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So, do we want to end this one
Yeah.
and go to the next?
May I please, thank you everyone for this discussion. May I call for a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned for the IDA, May 13, 2025. I'll quickly get into, unless anybody wants to break. All right. So I would like to call to order the meeting of Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation, May 13, 2025, 9:55 a.m. The mission of Ulster County Capital Resource Corporation is to promote community and economic development in Ulster County in ways that complement the work of Ulster County, primarily through issuing and selling bonds for not-for-profit organizations and institutions.
I'm sorry I butchered that. Roll call. Miss Rachel Silverman.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Present.
Present. Thank you. Costa Val. Present. We have a quorum. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 19th meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve minutes approved. No public comments? Nobody here? All right. We don't need an executive session unless anybody requires one?
Nope.
All right. I don't have any old business unless anybody else wants to bring up anything. All right. No old business. New business is very quick. It's more of an update. We are going to, and of course, you're both welcome to guide us as well. There was a brief discussion last time about a potential bridge solution for not-for-profits or small businesses where they have a potential grant or a grant approved, but they don't have cash available, who can come to IDA or UCCRC, I'm sorry, and seek a bridge loan for a small amount. There might be potential duplicate option available with another organization, and I think that's UCIDA.
I have their
You do?
terms.
All right.
I don't see it on their website, so I didn't want to include it, but they are doing a revolving loan fund, which is a co-lending program. They do have you can use it for working capital and inventory with a term limit of 1 to 2 years, but everything else looks like it's long-term, so it doesn't look like this is gonna function as a bridge loan.
What's
So we just wanted to make sure if we do some sort of loan program that we're not duplicating another service already available through the county.
So is that,
This is
this is not
No,
This
ours.
This
is
is not us. This is EDA.
I was gonna say, because
No, we are
those
not-
numbers.
This is UCIDA's revolving loan fund. My understanding is that it's been approved. We're working on getting the building an application.
But this is not public yet.
It's approved.
Okay.
It may
All
be
right,
in their
so
meeting minutes, but
All right.
it is not. I couldn't find the application anywhere, so I don't think it's open yet.
Okay.
So
That's what I was
have you
told.
guys discussed,
I have discussed this with Kevin. It's a co-lending program, meaning you have to bring in another institution.
okay,
You
but what would your cap be?
So we haven't discussed anything
what I
in
was
terms of
curious
this.
So what we are here for is we discussed something like this briefly earlier as a bridge loan. And we are, of course, focused on our mission for UCCRC. The question is, are you okay with us progressing and doing a little bit of research and understanding where we can be useful in a place where this does not cover the organizations we might want to cater to?
Right.
And even the cap.
Bridge loan, that would be for a construction loan, basically,
Mhm.
Yep.
so that then it would be converted to long-term financing
Correct.
upon completion.
Correct.
Which we would, if we were financing the long-term, I think that would help make our package better to have bridge financing to get them, from here to there.
Right.
Or if the other example would be, so that's kind of the objective,
Mhm.
or even to support an existing applicant or potential applicant in terms of if there's a grant or some other money coming in that hasn't been received by them just yet. In the interim, can we be the backstop?
Some of the
Yeah, I think that, as we've seen with some of the projects that have come before us that don't pan out, there's some risk to it, so we just have to,
We'll have to do the due diligence.
would
of
have
course.
to look for due diligence and also probably guarantees.
Yeah.
And that'd be potential grant if that's in place.
And I think one of the things that I've heard anecdotally, so no research has been done, it's just anecdotally, is that you have a nonprofit who needs a grant for some sort of capital improvement. Let's say it's like a new heating
And
system.
they have to spend the money first.
They have to spend the money
Right.
first, and they don't
We have to
have
vouch
enough
for
in
it.
what's it called, unrestricted funds.
Mhm.
So even though they've got money flowing through.
They can't use it.
They can't use it, and so they
Catch-22, You
can't.
gotta spend the money before you
Yeah.
get it.
And they don't have enough in their unrestricted funds, and then they're going to the bank for a bridge loan at a very, very high rate. And we're thinking that, and sometimes that can be, that can be really cost prohibitive, especially in a smaller nonprofit. And so could the UCCRC come in and do some work to support the infrastructure investment that a lot of these nonprofits want to make but don't have access to the capital.
So essentially, where there's a promise for the source of funds.
Yeah.
And we come in and support them.
Yeah, so they would have to apply, let's say through the CFA, get the project approved through the state, then we're coming in kind of laying out that money. It gets reimbursed directly to us, however we get it set up. And this way, for projects that don't have that unrestricted fund balance that can cover it, we can come in and support that.
And this is going to be only dedicated to nonprofit.
Or
right?
maybe very small businesses.
Okay. Tread lightly.
Yes.
Okay, yes, treading.
We will
I
be
think
mindful.
I think it would be better to be a not-for-profit.
Tread lightly.
All right, not for profit.
Well, I think it would also have to align with our mission. So if there's no jobs,
Correct.
Right.
So this wouldn't apply to things that don't really create a lot of jobs.
Yeah, or if we don't
But
do
there's a lot of
retail.
not-for-profits.
So
You
not-for-profit.
look across the county here. We have lots and lots of
Oh, yeah.
not-for-profits
Oh, yeah.
who create jobs
Yeah,
and
100%.
are
And-
able to get grants. I think of the hospital where I work is that way.
Yes.
We get grants and we have to lay out the money.
Mhm.
And I'd say
In
it's,
the old days when we had 2 days of cash, that was hard to do.
well, I think
Not
it's
as hard
prudent.
now.
Both of what you're saying is prudent. I think it's best to not only tread lightly, but perhaps baby steps.
Oh,
Once,
yeah, I don't see us rolling this
Yeah.
out.
I did have a
Next
question
week.
on this though. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody read. Is this correct? Federal crime rate minus 2%
I've
and
seen it
minus
too.
1%?
Yes, that,
Do we know what the yields are currently?
3% below prime.
yeah, I don't.
I don't know how to say this nicely, but I want it.
What's the name of your
The
nonprofit?
yield was like 4.6 yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's a wash on
Okay.
the fees. Read the fees.
Okay.
yeah.
We'll have some work to do.
And I will be totally honest,
Free
other
loans.
than having
Oh,
a bank, I am not a banker.
this is
So,
money out the pocket, not free.
It's free loans.
yeah.
Okay, anyways.
So anyway, this is what the UCIDA is doing, and so we really want to make sure that we're not doing a lot of work as a board when they can go and someone else has already done
No,
this
but
work.
they-
Well, we are going to do what we
We're
want
going to
do.
refer,
Yeah.
this was better
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
we would
the-
refer.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
So this is
so
a better
this
deal.
is great.
Yeah.
But is that the minimum? The minimum, or is that it's up to 25? No, it would be
No,
up to
no.
150.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's close
So
to
25,000 jump off. Anything
Yeah, yeah.
below 25,000, you need somebody to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audible.
Could be you. Could be us.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
But this is
Not at 0%.
right,
Negative.
0%. But this one is
Negative 0.5.
Yeah. This is,
Yeah, we might not
What's
be
this
as competitive,
Minimum of 3%.
but it would look to me
It's still
like
below market.
Oh, yeah.
this one is longer term financing.
It is.
It is.
This is not what we're talking about at all.
yeah,
No.
terms are
We're
longer.
looking at something where you're looking at 6 months or a
Yeah,
year.
months to
Right,
year.
right.
That's right.
Construction period when you have expenses.
Yeah.
And so we have not-for-profits, and we have a lot of
Yeah.
not-for-profits
Yes.
in Ulster County.
No, our term of
Would help them to build stuff when they could get grants, which
Yeah.
would be a little lean for the next few years.
and
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll be able to do working capital and inventory because I'm not sure if somebody is getting a grant for working capital. I'm sure there is something for that as well, but we'll
I
have to
think
look
we
into
really-
that.
We should look really at bridge.
Yeah.
I think bridge loans
Yeah.
is good because there, we know we're gonna get paid because
Correct.
we would have the grant information.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that there's a grant commitment.
Correct.
And we know how much they think they're gonna need, and we know how long they need it.
Our risk
And
is
that's-
capped.
Risk is pretty capped.
Yeah. Term is low.
Term is low, I mean, doesn't seem,
Your
that seems
duration
like that
becomes
would be really
negligible.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that if we did, I think that could be really good. 'Cause I think there's a lot of not-for-profits that get grants, and it would be really helpful
Yes.
for them to be able to have a way to finance that
Yeah.
while they did
Yes.
whatever was updating their offices or, there's lots
Absolutely.
of.
Or even they pass on grants often because they don't have the ability to lay it out, so they're not even applying.
So what I'm hearing is we should move forward
Okay.
and not to waste a lot of time, but sorry, go ahead.
Let's bring it to the board.
Yeah, and come
Yeah.
back and bring to the board.
So we
Yeah.
can
And-
sit down and kind of write it up,
Yeah.
some ideas, and
Yeah,
bring it.
all right.
Okay,
I'll
I
be
like
available.
Great idea. That would be a way that we could help not-for-profits.
There you
Correct.
go.
Yeah.
Correct, that is
We're
exactly.
not- We haven't really played a lot in that space,
Yes.
but,
But we also have nobody coming to us.
Well, at the
But
same
they don't
time,
know.
If we
no,
have
that's not
something, then we
so.
will be
We
more in
have-
front.
We have
Yeah.
Woodland
We have
Pond came
Woodland
to
Pond.
us.
Woodland Pond came to us because that's how we did the original one also, when it wasn't gonna
This one
work out.
wouldn't, I mean, what we're talking about now wouldn't
Yeah,
necessarily.
I'm
work
talking
for
about
that system.
smaller
I'm
businesses.
talking about small businesses, but if we made that known, when places are applying for grants, they would know that they would be able to have a way to pay for getting the project out of the
Yeah.
blocks. And they could even put that in, the carrying cost for that, which wouldn't be that much, because it's for a fairly short time, into their grant.
This
Or-
is where-
Or pay for it themselves.
This is where the PR's gotta come into play
Yeah.
a little bit.
And that's where I was going. We have to have the sign ready. Without the assistance of IDA, this is not
I love it.
possible.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
we
Yeah, I love
Billboard.
that. Great idea.
A billboard.
All right, billboard,
Mike's
yeah.
gonna paint.
billboard.
I love it.
We have a new logo.
We do.
The logo. And you can put a QR code on the sign.
Oh, as you're
QR
driving
code.
down.
Yeah, you're driving off the road as you're clicking.
Clicking, yeah, get a ticket.
And then you have to go through the website while you're driving.
Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
good.
But all right, I like this. I appreciate
Okay.
everybody being
All
here.
right.
All right.
Don't want to take more time.
All right.
This
So
one.
now we're.
Great idea.
If nothing else, I'd like to call this meeting to be adjourned if I could seek a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in
All right.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Meeting has been adjourned from UCCRC.